Welcome back to the King Films College Football Playoff Predictions and Rankings video, and let's get right into it. But a quick reminder to please subscribe to the channel. We are on the chase to 1,000 subscribers. And let's get right into the rankings, starting with number 25, Purdue, who is coming off a big upset of Iowa. As we predicted in our locks, we had Purdue plus 12, and they ended up winning outright, so that will earn them their ranking this week. One of their losses is to a good Notre Dame team, so I think that overall this is a pretty good Purdue team in the Big Ten. Number 24, we've got SMU coming off an undefeated season so far, and they've got to be looking forward to their showdown with Houston in a couple weeks. Number 23, we've got Coastal Carolina finally on the rankings for me, as there was a little bit of space this week. They've taken care of business for the most part, but they are coming off a bye week, and we'll see what happens to them down the stretch. Clemson beat Syracuse by 3, and obviously their two losses have come in very close fashion, one being to Georgia and the other to number 21 NC State, who stays in about the same place this week. Number 20 Texas down 5 spots after another brutal loss to Oklahoma State, and we're starting to realize Texas doesn't really have anything on their resume, but I'm just going to keep them in the rankings because I think this is a great team. They've jumped out in front in both of the past 2 weeks against both of the Oklahoma teams, but they've just surrendered late in those games and have just been a very unlucky team. Of course, their other loss came to number 19, Arkansas, who suffered a loss to Auburn this week, which we will talk about a little later. Arkansas obviously played close to Ole Miss last week, but now they're in a bit of a skid, so they've lost 3 straight. Number 18, we've got Kentucky, who lost to Georgia this week, but also hurting their resume is the fact that Florida actually is not a good team, and that was pretty much their only win. Obviously, that loss to Georgia was their first loss, but Kentucky takes a hit because of that Florida loss again. Number 17, Auburn earns their spot into the rankings after they've proven that game against Georgia State 3 weeks ago was an apparition, and they're really a better team than that. With their win over Arkansas in convincing fashion on the road, that really surprised us here, and Auburn earns the number 17 spot because of that. Moving on to the middle 8, we've got number 16, Pittsburgh, who was able to beat the doors off of Virginia Tech last week. Number 15, we've got Michigan State. And then number 14, we've got Notre Dame, who also had a bye week. Number 13, Baylor earned a huge win over a BYU team that is no longer ranked after losing 2 straight, but that's a great win for this Baylor team as they look forward to the rest of their Big 12 slate. Number 12, we've got Iowa after their loss. Obviously, this offense is just not what they were made out to be early, and they suffered because of that against Purdue. There's a lot of question marks on this Iowa team, and I could see them going down in the next few weeks, as a lot of their wins are proving out to not be huge. Obviously, the Penn State game, Penn State had their quarterback out. Number 11, Oregon drops a couple spots after their close win over Cal. Number 10, Texas A&M drops a few spots just because while they did win against Mizzou, and that was a good win that justified their position as the number 10 team, Alabama has kind of become a less respectable team. While they did go up in the rankings this week, Alabama's win against Florida was taken down a couple notches, which was a tough look for them. So Texas A&M will suffer here, dropping down to the 10 spot. And finally at number 9, we've got Penn State. Moving on to the top 8, we've got number 8, Michigan. And then we've got number 7, Oklahoma State, who again had the great comeback win over Texas this week. They move up to number 7 here. Number 6, we have Ohio State. Number 5, Cincinnati, with a blowout win over UCF. That is a very good result for this team, as UCF is one of the tougher opponents that they will play in the American. Number 4, Ole Miss justified their position despite a close win against Tennessee. Obviously, that is a hard place to play this year, and Tennessee is a good team despite their record, and they might give Alabama a game next week. I would not be surprised if they do. Number 3, we've got Oklahoma coming off a win over TCU. Number 2, Alabama blew the doors off of Mississippi State, as they should. And I just want to clarify that Alabama is at number 2 because while they were at number 1, there was really nowhere for them to rise. So when they did lose to Texas A&M in a close game, I'm considering that it's a close game and it was on the road, they really didn't have too far because they'd worked their way up. Similarly, if Georgia were to lose close in the next couple weeks against a tough opponent, they might even stay at the number 1 spot because they've just proven to be so much better than other teams so far, and they have multiple wins over ranked teams, including Kentucky, Clemson, Arkansas, etc., and it doesn't seem like they'll get stopped anytime soon. But let's move on to our college football playoff and New Year's Six Bowl predictions. There were only a couple changes here, as again, there are only 2 SEC teams in the playoff despite there being 3 in the top 4 of the rankings, because there is obviously the SEC championship, and say an Ole Miss not making the SEC championship because they already lost to Bama will not give them the proper respect in the committee's eyes, and I don't think that they would be ranked in that top 4 at the end of the season, considering that the teams that win the other conferences will get that extra data point at the end. But since they do not have that yet, say Cincinnati's 13th game, Oklahoma's 13th game, that is why Ole Miss is currently ranked above them. So Cincinnati is at the 4 spot against Georgia. Alabama will play Oklahoma in the Orange Bowl. Next, Ole Miss faces Penn State in the Fiesta Bowl. The Sugar Bowl stays the same as last week, so does the Rose Bowl. And then the Peach Bowl is the Coastal Carolina Chanticleers against the Oklahoma State Cowboys. The only team that was relegated this week was Iowa, and they were in the playoff last week, and they aren't even on this board this week. A rough week for Iowa fans. Thank you for watching. Please be sure to like and subscribe and comment your predictions and ranking edits below.